Good afternoon. This is Mike Small, and I'm Executive Director of the Alumni Relations Office at NJIT, and I'm thrilled to welcome our Stryker Corporate Club here today. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Ken Trimmer, the co-chair of the Stryker Corporate Club, for some welcome remarks. Ken?
Good afternoon. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Ken Trimmer. I'm the Senior Director of Engineering Standards at Stryker Orthopedics. I did get my undergraduate and graduate degrees in mechanical engineering at NJIT, and I've been with Stryker for 30 years now. If you can go ahead to the slides, Mike. Here we go. Okay. First thing I wanted to just share with you is the company's mission, and this is important. You see, it says, "Together with our customers, we are driven to make healthcare better," and it's a great mission, and it's a great place to work because we are focused on helping people. You'll see our values too, and our values really, in summary, focus on doing things the right way and doing things right. If you can move on, next slide. In summary, if you look at Stryker at a glance, these are 2018 results. We had sales of $13.6 billion. We have almost 8,000 patents globally in 2018, and a R&D budget of almost $900 million. You can also see over 36,000 employees worldwide and 39 straight years of sales growth, which is pretty unprecedented. And lastly, we are a Fortune 500 company as well. If you could move on, Mike. Next slide. If you look at the products we deliver, they're really broken into three major categories. You see orthopedics, you see medical and surgical equipment, and neurotechnology and spine. And we have a pretty broad range of products and a lot of depth in each one of these areas of expertise, where we are market leaders in most cases. And you'll see things like facial reconstruction or stroke and aneurysm treatment under our neurotechnology. You look under our surgical and medical, and you might see down in the center of the page that yellow stretcher. And if you're watching sporting events and see unfortunately, when somebody's injured, you'll often see that yellow stretcher come out on the field to take someone off the field. And obviously, a big part of our business is orthopedics with joint replacement, as well as the state-of-the-art robotics, where we are the pioneer and market leader in that area. Next slide. So we think we have a pretty special workplace and a pretty special culture at Stryker. And just talk for a minute about what makes us so special. Well, if you remember, I focused on that mission in the beginning, and it's because what we do every day is improve people's lives. The products and services we provide directly impact people's ability to get up and moving again, or in some cases, even to save lives. We have a tremendous focus on personal development. We spend a lot of time with our employees working on developing their strengths, and everybody owns their career at Stryker, and there's plenty of opportunities for advancement and learning new things. And lastly, I mentioned it earlier, we do have a winning team, and we focus very much on not only doing the right things, but doing them the right way. A strong commitment to delivering results and, again, meeting our commitments and putting the best products on the market. Next slide, Mike. And we feel pretty proud that all these efforts have been recognized. Here's a handful of some of our more recent honors, in many cases recognized as a great place to work. As I mentioned, a Fortune 500 company. And you see these are not just US-based recognition, but they're actually global recognition. So before we move on, the theme of today is going to be going through the different career opportunities at Stryker. And the idea is to provide some insight into the various disciplines required to bring a product to market, from the very early concepts all the way through to market release. So you'll hear from different NJIT alumni who have moved their careers into different aspects of the business. And some other great things for the folks working at Stryker is their ability to work with some really cool technology, things such as virtual bone databases that ties into our CAD/CAM system, the ability to work with additive manufacturing and really cutting edge state-of-the-art additive manufacturing, as well as that robotic assisted surgery and designing implants and procedures that revolve around the use of this technology. And lastly, this all occurring in a digital environment, which is very exciting. So with that, I'm going to introduce Sherry Sariel to start taking you through that.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be with you today, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about project and program management, which is one of the areas within Stryker where there are job opportunities for folks like you who have engineering degrees and are looking to contribute to that med tech world. So you'll notice that we're going to take you through a couple of phase gates today. We're going to talk to you about job opportunities within concept and technology development, which then leads into process and product design, for those who are interested in that. And then there are also many opportunities within launching a product, folks who are dedicated and focused on that effort. And then we're also going to walk through potential opportunities within sustaining. It's a whole, which is an entirely different realm where there are many professional opportunities for graduates like yourself who are looking to obtain engineering degrees. So, program management. Think of program management as the glue that keeps all the cross-functional groups talking and working together towards a common goal. So this is the overarching group that keeps everybody coordinated, and you'll notice there in the bubble, you'll see there listed some of the different functions within our company. So advanced operations, product development, which many of you are familiar with. There's also marketing, regulatory, quality, and also portfolio management. And so all of these groups, we have large projects that often affect many different parts of the company and very, very many times internationally. And you need that central point of contact that is keeping track of the product, coordinating meetings, coordinating deliverables. So you'll notice there in the box that's on the right-hand side, the very center yellow says technical, and that's technical because a technical contributor is one who focuses on their individual deliverables. But that technical work then contributes to a project, and it's enveloped in that. And then you'll have several projects who could then coordinate and create a program. So those are just some different ways you can think about program management and all the different areas that it touches. Program management is also not, confined to any one degree. I mean, I have a biomedical engineering degree from NJIT, both my bachelor's and my master's, but I decided to focus on some of my soft skills and leadership skills, and I wanted to practice those muscles through program management. So I made the transition from a technical role to a program management role, which is great that I had that opportunity within Stryker. And that's an option that's always available to yourselves as well. As you learn and grow within technical or leadership roles, you might decide that you want to go one way or another. And there's no set path for that. You can always decide to explore and learn in different areas, and which is exactly what I did with program management, which is also available to you as well. And with that, I'd like to hand it off to Keenan Hansen, who's going to talk to you a little bit about advanced technology.
Thanks, Sherry. As Sherry said, I'm Keenan Hansen. I'm a senior staff engineer in advanced technology. So basically, I'll kind of go through what advanced technology is in Stryker and kind of how I got there and what my background is, just to give you a little flavor of what's going on. So advanced technology, it's basically a group within Stryker whose role is to sort of identify new technologies, either from university, research grad groups, or even industry, and sometimes even internally developed. So to take those technologies we kind of identify that may have, clinically beneficial properties, right? So take those and validate them against the clinical needs, right? So, for example, years ago, Dina will actually cover a little bit more detail around this, but we looked at additive manufacturing, and I know many of you have heard of additive manufacturing. Back around 2010, it was something that was sort of incubated in advanced technology and slowly sort of validated that, yes, it could meet some clinical needs. and then kind of brought up from benchtop lab scale stuff into more manageable and more production friendly technologies. And then at that point, the role of advanced technology would be sort of hand off that technology to groups that are more suited to industrialization, and continue to support, and then move on to the next technology. So how I got here and my experience at NJIT. So I started at Stryker in 2009. And as I was kind of going through some of my early career, I found myself really focusing in on process development. And I was afforded the opportunity to continue my education with Stryker. So I attained my master's in industrial engineering back in 2013. It really helped me kind of focus in and kind of really burrow down into what I really was interested, which is really process development and process engineering. So that's kind of a quick overview of what advanced technology is and kind of how I got here. I gave the example of additive manufacturing, which Dina will cover a little bit more, but it covers a broad range of things. Platform development, which is really looking at different technologies that sort of can be broadcast across the whole division or even larger. Applied biomechanics, it's, as it looks there, you're looking at trying to understand the biomechanics of the devices that we're selling specific to joint replacement. And then materials and processing. My background in my undergraduate is materials, and this is something that's sort of near and dear to me that we spend a lot of time thinking about, which is really how do we improve or understand the materials that we currently use in terms of biocompatibility, in terms of mechanical performance. A lot more detail in all those, but in a few short minutes, that's the overview of myself at Stryker and the Advanced Technology Group. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dina.
Hey, everybody. My name is Dino Magoo, and I've been at Stryker for nearly 4 years, and I work on the additive manufacturing team. I got my bachelor's in biomed engineering at NJIT and my PhD in materials science from NJIT. Could you go to the next slide, please? So what the additive manufacturing team focuses on is how can we bring additive to our divisional partners and help them create and innovate and launch new products using this technology. So our team researches new technologies based on input from what our divisional partners want. So what are they interested in seeing from additive? What do they wish that they could design and have us manufacture for them? So the engineers in our team evaluate feasibility and look for appropriate business cases and applications for these new technologies, and then we bring them in-house. Next slide, please. So once we have these technologies in-house, our team works really hard on developing a robust process that can meet the material requirements needed for the products we're looking to launch. So what you're looking at here are two images of a sample of metal that were manufactured on the same process. Before we've done our optimization of this process, you can see there's a lot of holes in this metal. And after process development, we have made a fully dense material that can be used in future products that we would like to launch. Next slide, please. So another thing that our group is heavily involved with is design for additive manufacturing. So additive manufacturing is a very new and cool technology. And as we learn more about these technologies and these processes, we learn ways that we can design for these processes so that we can better design new products. So we take those learnings and we share them with our divisional partners so that they can design new products and dream up with new ideas to come up with better products for the future. And with that, I'd like to introduce Matt Nicosia with product development.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Matt Nicosia. I've been with Stryker for 6 years, and from NJIT, I got my bachelor's and master's degree in biomedical engineering. So today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what new product development is and its role at Stryker. Now, to me, new product development is a flashy catch-all term because really everyone at Stryker and everyone you're hearing from today is involved in a new product development activity. But let's talk about now, what does the actual department of new product development at Stryker actually do? So as a new product engineer, the primary focus we do is we're taking the technologies and achievements from all the different cross-functional groups at Stryker and really funneling them into a tangible product, a product that can be sold for revenue at the end of the day. So what you see here on this slide is really a very, very condensed version of how a product goes from concept to launch. I'll run you through that right now to give you a flavor of what the new product development engineer role does. So to begin, first thing we do is we engage with our surgeon customers to figure out what is the actual market need for a product? What's the clinical problem that we're trying to solve? And from that, then we'll start scoping out a project to find out, all right, we're not going to solve every problem in the world. We're going to focus in on one clinical problem and have a defined start and stop point for that project. And that's called the scope. Now, once the scope's determined, that new product development engineer then will generate a concept to try and solve that clinical need. Now, after that concept is really developed, then we go back to those surgeon customers and try to get some feedback on, does it actually meet their needs? Now here also, we not only will go to our external customers, but also we're going to iterate the design internally as well and talking to our internal partners. So that means discussing things with people from manufacturing, from the legal department, from every different cross-functional group that might be a stakeholder in the project, because we have to figure out we have to agree on a solution for this clinical problem that not only works for our customer, but also makes sense to pursue from Stryker's perspective. At that point, once our internal and external partners agree on a concept to move forward with, then we focus in on what's called verification and validation activities. Now, these different verification and validation activities, what could they include? That might be any kind of mechanical testing, any kind of biological testing, as well as things like user experience testing, like does our product pass our customers' standards in a cadaver lab setting? Now, that's where a lot of the bulk of the work comes in. But the good news is once you have things that satisfy those verification and validation activities, we know our product is safe and effective for use. We feel confident as a company to put that out to the market, to stake Stryker's reputation on it, and as well as to put it into a patient and have them walk around for potentially the rest of their life for that product. And that's when we move on to the product launch phase. Now, product launch, it's very satisfying because then oftentimes you could see a project where you were involved in the very, very beginning of this process to really start discussing the concept of what could solve that clinical need and see that product that sits on the shelf and Stryker's able to sell for revenue and also go into patients and improve their lives. So that's a little flavor of new product development. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Miriam Gabra to talk about RAQA.
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miriam Gabera, and I'm Director of Regulatory Affairs and Quality Assurance for Stryker Spine. So I joined Stryker about 5 years ago, initially joining the Regulatory Affairs Department, and then expanding my role into QA, which is Quality Assurance. So I graduated from NJIT in 2008 with a biomedical engineering degree, and then I quickly went back for my master's in BME as well. And then 9 years later, I went back to school for an MBA, but outside NJIT. So I spent really all my career in the medical device industry, which I really enjoy. The medical device industry is very highly regulated, so it drives the need for continuous RAQA oversight and support. So I personally never thought I'd be growing or grow my career in RAQA, especially because I didn't even know what that was when I was in college. I find that now speaking to a lot of students, this is very common because you tend to hear a little bit about, R&D, development, manufacturing, but not too much about the other departments. So RAQA is truly involved in every aspect of the development process from concept to launch. So in this slide here, actually, I want to go through this diagram to show you how we are involved in almost every stage there. So next 2 clicks, please. Okay, thank you. So, early on in the beginning, as Matt was mentioning with the development process, we do get involved there as we look to determine the regulatory strategy. From a quality perspective, we're looking at the risk management, risk profile of the product. And then if there are any clinical studies needed, we're also looking at the regulatory requirements and standards required that we would need to follow. Then the regulatory affairs person will be submitting that, submission to the regulatory body to get approval. We're involved from a quality perspective in manufacturing, making sure that we're reviewing documentation, assessing, approving changes. When it comes to what goes on the product, we're giving guidance on what goes on the labeling. We also work with the marketing team to develop or review the collateral, the marketing material, what we're going to say when we release that product to the market. When it comes to distribution, where are we going to take this medical device? So if we're going global in different markets, regulatory is also involved there, and quality as well, to determine how we can get the product there. And then finally, once the product is in the field, we're also assessing the post-market safety and post-market surveillance. So we're looking at, we receive complaints, we look at return product, if there are any issues, and if there are any adverse events, we report on that too to FDA. And then unfortunately, if there are recalls, of course, that sometimes happen, then we would execute those as well. So as you can see, I mean, our RAQA is essentially in everything here. In terms of opportunities, I mean, you could have many different careers within RAQA. You could work as a regulatory affairs specialist, as a quality engineer, as a failure analysis engineer, as a project manager, as Sherry was mentioning. The opportunities are endless. So to wrap it up, I would strongly encourage you to start looking at RAQA postings, because you never know what you'll come across, and you'll also learn a little bit more about the roles, what the role entails. So now I will pass it on to Mike Spees to talk about advanced operations.
Hey everybody, yep, Mike Spees, I'm a project manager in advanced operations. The slide there, great. All right, so I went to NJIT for my undergraduate in biomedical engineering, graduated in 2012. During that time, I also did internship at Stryker. So great opportunities there, 2010, 2011, I did that with the HIP product development team. Then I graduated and I went over to Spine Research and Development, and I stayed there till 2016 rather. And now I joined the Advanced Operations Group. So as you can see, there's plenty of places to go in the company, and it really is. It's a great place to work. So we'll tell you a little bit more about Advanced Operations, which is pretty unique to Stryker. There is other companies that have dedicated new product development operations groups, but not to the breadth that Stryker does. And that's what makes this group very fun to work for, to tell you the truth. So each one of our product categories, joint replacement, trauma and extremities, they all have sales, marketing, research and development, quality, regulatory, right? And we have a global organization, GQO, that Advanced Operations sits in, and we service with them to launch products, right? So in general, that's the advanced operations from a global level. And you can see it's quite a large team, 621 people back in 2019, just about $104 million in budget. And, I'd say if you say one sentence, what do? We drive quality into the product and cost out, right? So we're working with the suppliers or internal manufacturing and the cross-functional team to develop processes that are lean and that drive a lot of quality into the product, right? So our customers benefit from that. So we do process development. We have purchased products, like I said, with suppliers. We're very heavy in metrology in terms of, you can manufacture things a lot of different ways. You can metal injection mold it. You've heard about additive manufacturing. You could use traditional manufacturing. But if you can't call the product good, you don't have a product then, right? So that's very important to Stryker, is our metrology group. And then we also work with advanced technology to really, so advanced technology, go out, discover these manufacturing technologies or new materials that we want to use, and our group will work with them in order to bring those products to more of a marketed product, right? And then we work with the R&D team to get that to in front of our customers to develop an actual product that goes to the market itself. So like I said, Stryker is just a really great place to work, and I hope that you can find an opportunity here in the future. This goes over to Neha now. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. So hi, my name is Neha Sayal. I graduated from NJIT with my bachelor's in biomedical engineering in 2017. And I first began my career with Stryker as a manufacturing engineering intern. And it was thankfully through opportunities from NJIT's career fair that I was able to become an intern there. Then I converted to a full-time manufacturing engineer. And then from there on, I'm currently a quality engineer in the CQR department. So first, I just wanted to touch on the different opportunities that you can have within manufacturing. So first, one of those is being a manufacturing project engineer. You can work on both short and long-term projects to improve efficiencies. You can also be a manufacturing facilities engineer, where you firefight daily issues like machine breakdowns. And then last but not least, you can be a manufacturing packaging engineer, where you can bring in new packaging technologies to improve our overall throughput. So I specifically started in the investment casting cell. So that's the process that you see on the screen here. So I kind of just wanted to teach you about the different stages of that process. So first you see wax there on the top left, and those are actually femoral knees that are specifically made of wax at that process. Then they move on to the shelling process where they get coated with a slurry and sand. And then from there on, they go to dewax, where wax gets drained from those parts. And this is my favorite process. It's called casting. And this is where those parts get heated to about 2,850 degrees Fahrenheit and beyond. And then from there, those parts go through a finishing process like gating, as you see there on the screen. And then from there, those parts get X-ray inspected, where those parts are inspected for any sort of internal defects. And then from there, they go through a heat treatment process where the mechanical properties of those parts gets improved. And then last but not least, we have visual inspection. So that's where operators look to see if those parts have any sort of external defects and then scrap them if they do. And in all of these opportunities, these processes, there's always ways for us to improve as manufacturing engineers. So there's always room for continuous improvement. And now I'll kick it over to Sherry.
All right. Thank you, Neha, for the overview on manufacturing operations. So you guys have already been exposed to all of the different phases that go into just getting a product developed, made, and before it even goes on the market. And it's an extremely involved and arduous process before our customer even sees the product. But our job isn't done when the customer does see the product or is already using it. And that's where the sustaining world comes in. We continue to follow the life cycle of the product and make sure that our product is delivering on the promise that we make and we say that it's going to deliver on. So think of sustaining as now this is the group that owns the designs of products that are on the market. So at one point the designs were in flux, but now they're set, they're made, and they're being sold. So if you look at this slide, kind of gives you a really good idea of just how complex our products could be. If we focus on the left side first, on the top half, you'll see a knee implant and all of its different components and the way that it fits into the human body. If you look beneath that, you'll see what a typical hip implant would look like, the different components there, and the way it fits into the human body. So these geometries are extremely complex. They have to fit together just right. They have to articulate with one another a certain way. They have to snap into place. They have to be locked within the body. And that's just the product themselves and the way they fit and work and move within each other. That's not including how they have to fit within the body and the process that a surgeon has to go through in order to shape the body in such a way that these implants fit just right and give patients back their quality of life. So, like I said, extremely complex process to make these products and design them. And I think it's really important to appreciate the complexity of the products themselves, their geometries, their materials, all the thought that goes into making this product perform the way it should, as close as possible to the natural human body. And that's just orthopedics. So with that being said, there's a lot of room for error. There's a lot of different ways that something could go wrong, whether it's in the manufacturing process itself, whether it's a material batch that we receive and it doesn't meet our specifications, or if you're already in surgery and the surgeon opens up the box and he doesn't feel like the product quite looks right, and submits a complaint, or the product is already in a patient's body and they're complaining about something, or they're saying, or they, might feel like it isn't exactly giving them what they thought it would. So that's where the sustaining team comes in. We monitor all of these different interactions between the product and the surgeon and the patient. And we have to constantly assess, is this issue something that is arising from the way the product was made? Did we deliver a defective product, or was this an issue that arose from an instance in the field, right? Maybe it was a product was misused or applied incorrectly. So there's so many different variables that we have to stay on top of to make sure that our products meet the quality standards that we set forth for ourselves as a company. That being said, I touched a little bit on maybe something not being made right. We refer to those in industry as non-conformances, where we have our specifications and we have our processes and we have our inspection methods, but a product doesn't meet those specifications. It's non-conforming. A very, very small, simple example of what a non-conformance might look like, if you look at the bottom right hand, is like a product marking, right? Everything on the product is accounted for, all the way down to the little markings and etchings that you see, from the way it's marked, the method it's marked with, and the location on the product. So you'll see, I took a little snippet from a drawing that shows you this product should be marked on the bottom surface. But if you look, and this is what we call an acetabular trial. So it's an acetabular cup, but this is for the surgeon to see if it fits right, if this size is the right fit for the patient. But you'll notice that the marking is actually on the side. Really benign nonconformance. You could still tell what the product is and the part number and the lot code. The information is there, but it doesn't meet the specification on the drawing. So that's something that a sustaining team would address, right? Whether they have to, and they decide on the course of action, if they have to correct it or not. So monitoring product, non-conformances, assessing, the different ways that, assessing any of the comments or complaints we get. That's just one small part of what the sustaining team does. But we also are involved in many other initiatives that benefit the business, such as, for example, any process updates that could result in cost savings. So let's say we've been manufacturing this knee that you see right in front of you a certain way. The way that Neha had just explained, she just went through how we make our knee components, that femoral component. But let's say a part of that process has been a technology that we've been using for years, for the life of that product line. But then some newer, faster, less expensive way of making it comes along, something that may be beneficial to implement into our process. That takes a lot of assessment, takes a lot of work to change a manufacturing process. That's what the sustaining team would do. We could implement these new manufacturing technologies to better the process if we deem that the product is going to be long enough and the investment is worth it. We also go through product design updates, right? So let's say a product's been out in the field for 10 years, and we've noticed that we've been getting quite a few complaints about the way it's installed in a patient or the way it interacts with an instrument. We have the opportunity to enhance the performance of a product by updating the design, which we often do. So that's just a really brief snapshot of what product sustaining looks like, right? And Ken mentioned earlier on in the presentation that we have robotic assisted orthopedic surgery available through Stryker, and that's what you see those 3 Mako machines are. Those are the robots that assist in orthopedic surgery. Those also take a whole host of sustaining and maintaining, right? How the implants interact with this robotic procedure, and to make sure that we're constantly optimizing the patient and the surgeon experience. So with that, I'll move into packaging sustaining on the next slide. Again, so packaging has different aspects to it, but if we were to talk about the sustaining part of packaging, you'll notice that there are many different geometries. So for every single product that we've mentioned that we put out on the market, every single one needs to be delivered safely, and so that the product is not defective and it's whole, it's in one piece, but it also is easy to open and use in the OR. So many different designs, many things to consider. You'll notice that we have to consider things like biocompatibility, right? The implant comes in direct contact with the package. Is the package made out of a material that is biocompatible, that is not cytotoxic, right? Is this material biocompatible and durable enough to carry the product to its end destination? Through shipping, through sorting, all the way to the nurse's hands in the OR. Is it ergonomic? When the nurse holds that package in her hand, is it easy for her to open? And we do communicate with our customers, surgeons and nurses, to make sure that we're taking their feedback into account. Can they open the package in such a way that they can enter that implant or that product into the sterile barrier in such a manner where the surgeon has access to it without compromising the product itself or compromising the sterile barrier? So just some of the thought that goes into designing packaging. But there's also the matter of sustaining packaging as well. So we deal with a host of different materials. You're looking here at some rigid containers, right? Some materials that hold their shape and form rigidly, right? Has a very specific process for creating that. You even see some retainers. If you look there at the left side, you have like the top image has the product in it. Then the next image has this little plastic transparent part that goes on top to secure the product. And you see the complex geometry of the bottom of it. And then if you go to those squares inside that black section in the center there, you'll see that we're using a different material. It's not rigid, it's foil, it's clear, it's plastic. Well, is that material durable enough? Is it meeting our requirements as well? And then if you go all the way to the right, you'll see that, that's just an example of a box, but the shape of the box, the size of the box, is the product secure in there? Is it moving around a lot? Is it, if it goes through a certain host of testing, right? If it's being shipped, dropped, vibrated on a truck or an airplane, will it still reach that end destination again, safe and free of defects? So there's just to give you a snapshot of all the different considerations that an engineer has to take into account, whether it's on the product side or the packaging side or manufacturing. There's a whole host of opportunities for students like yourselves who are aspiring to get an engineering degree or even something else in a different field like finance or marketing, right? You are part of a team that works on putting these products out on the market so that surgeons have what they need in order to help patients get better. And there's no shortage of opportunities for you to become an SME in a field that will contribute to this extremely long, complex process, or no shortage of opportunities for you to learn about a different area that you might be interested in and transition into that after you've already entered the industry. So we really hope that you've benefited from this presentation and that you were able to see how relevant your degrees are and all the different ways that they can be applied and the different opportunities that you have. And this is just that one company, right? I know we have a large footprint. I know that we're really proud of the work that we do. We consider ourselves a leader in medtech, but we are just one company. And there are many, many other companies out there that are looking for great talent like yourselves, folks with engineering degrees or other degrees. And the idea here is that you were able to see just how applicable those degrees are in different parts of the industry. All right, so let's go into Q&A.
Sherry, thanks so much. I'm very happy to say that we've got a large number of questions that have come in. I want to thank our audience, by the way, for being so participative. Make sure, if you haven't already, to type in your names so that we know who we can follow up with. The first question comes from Arisha. Sherry, did you need any extra certification to switch to a program management role?
Yes, so I did not, and typically you won't. There is the PMP certification, which is the Project Management Professional, and that's issued by the PMI, the Project Management Institute. Most project managers will have that certification because it's a great tool. It helps show that you have that you've studied the knowledge that it would take to manage a project, but it is not mandatory. So you could get experience in that realm before you go ahead and pursue that certification.
All right. Our next question is for Dino from Jacob Martin. What has been your most challenging or favorite products that you've produced with additive manufacturing?
That's a good question. So one of the projects that I worked on was developing the manufacturing process for custom facial implants. And that was a very challenging project because we were developing very, very, very thin pieces of material that needed to be strong and dense, but also because they were customized for the patient, needed to maintain their geometry. So there's a lot of material science that went into that in order to build these metal parts while also maintaining their geometry from all the residual stresses that could come from a process like that.
All right, thank you. Our next question is from Shura. The question is for the entire group here. Is it possible to get the experience in different aspects, going from project management to regulatory? And if so, how would that work? Essentially moving from section of the company to another section.
So I'll jump on that one first. As I mentioned in the beginning, I've been with Stryker for 30 years. I believe I've had probably in the teens at least when you look at the different jobs, and have moved from discipline to discipline, from R&D to manufacturing, distribution, as well as advanced operations. So yes, there's definitely opportunities. The company's very open to people moving around. Mike Spies mentioned at least three different jobs in a relatively short time. And I think that's the great thing about it, is you have the opportunity to follow your passion. And if you come in and you start working, let's say in R&D, and you realize that you would benefit from learning more about manufacturing, and that opportunity in that position becomes available, the company's very good about encouraging folks to cross over to other disciplines and learn. And I think some other folks can mention their own experiences where they've done that.
Okay, that's great. Our next question is from Tinori. This is from Matt. In new product development, how much of your day or week is spent on things like meetings and administrative work as opposed to doing hands-on work in a lab?
I would say if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say meeting-wise is probably about 20-30% of the time. That's something at Stryker they're very conscious of, because that's something that in corporate culture has been a plague, where you might be in meetings that just drag on, and that takes away from the work of actually completing projects. So that's something that's been addressed at Stryker. But for me, I'd say it's between 20-30% are meetings. It's not overwhelming at all.
That's a great answer. So our next question is from Irene. Does Stryker manufacture their packaging material? And this is to the general audience.
Who wants to take it?
Yeah, I could jump on there. So,
No, so currently we don't manufacture our own packaging material. We actually source it from outside suppliers.
Yep.
But we do have a packaging cell that works very closely with that material and applies it to the product.
Right.
Excellent. All right, so we've got several more questions, which are great. Audience, please keep them coming. Jacob Martin asks, does Stryker implement, it says cobot automation in their packaging lines? That's up to you guys if that's a particular programming language of any sort.
Yeah, so at Stryker, we actually call them C-bots, if that's a collaborative robot there. But we have them implemented. I'm not sure if they're in the packaging cell, but we certainly have them throughout the manufacturing floor. And some of the operations where we've used C-bots include like our blasting operations. And that's an easy substitute where you can take a robot and put them in the place of a human, because that's a lot of like manual activity with your hand. Like you have to move your wrist around a lot, and it can really cause ergonomic strain. So that was an easy place for Stryker to say, you know what, that's an operation where we can eliminate some of the stress that's on an operator's wrist and replace it with a C-bot.
I'd also maybe mention that our plant, we have a manufacturing plant not just in New Jersey, but we have several plants in Ireland, and the femoral components for the knees that you saw in Sherry's presentation, those shiny kind of sculpted looking parts, are almost fully automated from the time the casting gets entered into that cell, between the material handling from station to station to the actual fabrication or metal removal to polishing. Inspection is automated. It's a fully automated process, and it's pretty impressive to watch. And there's been different automation built into various manufacturing processes, really around the things that Neha had mentioned, is where you have a lot of repetitive activities where these things can be automated, as well as material handling where it makes sense.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in there, he's asking about maybe specific automation within the packaging cell. We don't at the moment. It's, something that we're exploring just a little bit, but if you have any great ideas and you want to bring them over, and it's something you're passionate about, we're always open to different investment opportunities that can be brought into our manufacturing lines.
I mean, sure, I'd add to that. We actually have a step in our new product development process that we have to evaluate if a process lends itself to automation. And if maybe we don't have the time or money right then, we need to make it so we don't do anything to inhibit the use of it later on, right?
All right, great answers. Folks, we have 4 more questions that are going to come in. What I'm going to encourage the audience to do is please make sure to email your questions to alumni@njit.edu. If you do not have your question answered, we'll be happy to forward that on to the corporate club along with your contact information. And do make sure to check into highlandernation.org or at LinkedIn, where you'll be able to connect with the folks that are presenting here today. Our next question is from Sorev. What skills from college did you use the most in industry? And this is for everyone. I am going to take the opportunity first to direct it to Matt. Matt, if you can answer that question first.
For me, I'd say the work dealing with FEA, which I completed during my master's program, as well as any CAD-based class. For me, I see that's something I use on a daily basis, CAD, especially in the product development group. So definitely I'd suggest that if you guys are able to take it in your undergraduate or graduate programs, get exposure to AutoCAD programs.
And Neha, what about you?
I would say that the most valuable class was my capstone class in my senior year, only because all of the skills that I learned from that class were like putting a project plan together, executing that project plan, working with the team. Those are all skills, and they're soft skills that I learned and applied in my job. Whatever department I'm in, whether manufacturing or quality engineering, you're always going to have to work with a team of people. So going through that capstone class really gave me those skills that I needed to get through projects here.
Great to hear the shout out for Capstone. That's wonderful. Keenan, what about you? What are the skills you had in college that you have used professionally?
Yeah, I think the biggest skill that I learned in my master's program and kind of followed up in industry was data analysis and statistics. It's not the most glamorous thing, but getting a fundamental on those is really, really powerful when you're trying to bring new technologies to light.
That's great. Ken, Mr. Trimmer, what about you?
So I kind of echo, there's a lot of the tactical things you learn, but probably the biggest takeaway is when you get into your classes where you're working as a team on big projects, and you learn very quickly in industry is you don't do anything alone. There's no way you can bring a product to market alone. Everybody has a piece of it, and everybody has to work together. So I think school teaches you problem-solving skills and learning how to get the answer versus having to remember maybe all the facts and equations and things. But just as importantly is really learning, and I remember this being in sort of my later classes and in my master's, where you were given a project with several other folks and everybody had to chip in. And that's how it is in industry, and I think those are the most valuable things I remember.
So our next question is from Marissa. What steps should one take who's interested in interning with Stryker? And I am going to start with you, Mike, if you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts about preparation for internships.
Right. So I think there's a lot of resources that we have right now in terms of career fairs, just even going to Stryker.com, building relationships, reaching out via LinkedIn, coming to these meetings. That's a big one. But yeah, no, it's in terms of preparation for it, it's just keeping an open mind and really, once you get there, soaking in the corporate environment, it gives you such a head start for your career. And it certainly, I think that was the best class that I took, right? Right. There's nothing to replace the actual live experience, right? There's tons of great classes at NJIT. I agree. The capstone class is awesome. But you really should do an internship. It shows you what the real world has out there.
I just want to jump in there on that question. We do have a career fair, a virtual career fair next Friday, the 25th. So if you're really interested, make sure you're looking into that. You're signing up. Stryker does have some open time slots available. And, I'll be there to talk to you folks and try to give you that career fair experience. But do what you can to make yourself marketable as well, and apply any experiences that you get from your class projects to what you could bring to the industry.
Yeah, I think just to one more point I wanted to make to Miriam's point before, you may say, oh, I want to do product development, or I want to work in operations. There's tons of great internships, in both marketing, in RA, QA, in some of the groups you might have not heard about, in sterility, things like that keep an open mind and go after them, because it's really just the experience of being there and seeing the interaction and the communication between the teams.
So we have two final questions. The first from Snehal is, what advice would you have liked to have heard when you were starting out? And this one I'd like to direct to Dino and Miriam.
Sure, I can go ahead and get started. So I would say learning about the company, that's one thing that I probably wanted to spend more time understanding, and not just like the one company you're applying for, but just generally in industry, how things work. I think I got a little bit of a glimpse of that in my capstone project, but honestly not enough to understand different departments. And you just don't know like how many departments you could actually work in. So sometimes when you're doing your searches, you're focused only on like 2 departments that you've heard of, but yet there's so much more to look at. The other thing is getting internships, 1 or 2. I know it's not that easy, but at the same time, it is something to prioritize and make sure that you, when you're going to these career fairs, ask a lot of questions, learn about the company, learn about what they're looking for, learn or from a professional development perspective, do your own homework, right? Like look through, read online. Make sure that when you're coming in for an interview, you're prepared, you understand what they would be looking for based on the conversation that you had at career fairs and these any virtual learning or career events. I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, thanks. I kind of want to echo the same thing. I didn't have the opportunity to do very many internships, and there was definitely a more difficult time to find things to put on my resume. But I did have a lot of research experience in the university lab setting, so that was a big plus. So I think what I would say is get an internship if you can get an internship. It's definitely super important to see what actually is going on in industry, and also to kind of echo what Mike said, be open-minded. Like, I guess when I was in college and grad school, I would have said, I definitely don't want to be a quality engineer. I want to do something different. But now that I'm actually working with quality engineers, their job is very, very interesting. And maybe I'd like to do a quality position at some point in time. So definitely get experience that you can put on your resume and do your research, because when you go to that interview, you definitely want to know what the company's doing and what you should be expected of in that role, so you can give them an idea of what your interest is and why you want to be in that position.
That's a great answer. All right, so we actually have one question that I skipped over before that I do want to toss out briefly from Manny. Which CAD platform is primarily used at Stryker? And this is a question open to the group. Okay.
Creo Pro.
Excellent.
There you go. Right.
So yeah,
Creo.
All right, so we have 2 more questions that I will ask, and then we'll cut it off. So the next question comes from Nime. During your years at Stryker, did you come across major drawbacks or issues in your respective departments, and how did you tackle them? And this I'd like to ask for Ken and Sherry to offer your experience there.
Sure. I mean, as you can imagine, over 30 years with a company, there's going to be opportunities for drawbacks, if you want to call them. Conflict is probably the term I would use, better than a drawback. It happens, right? You've got a lot of people working together trying to get something done, and each department has their goals. Ideally, everything's in alignment, and they often are, but there are occasions where goals might be conflicting. And when it typically happens, though, I think we've got a very good culture about open communication, and people will sit down with one another and just talk it out. I've seen that a lot, where maybe at the moment some incident has occurred and somebody's gotten their feelings hurt or they're upset about something. But most folks will get together, sit down and have a conversation, and you realize that everybody's coming from a good place. Everybody's intentions are good. But again, you start getting a lot of different personalities and mixes that can be difficult. We're a global company. We work, I mentioned, with plants in Ireland. We have engineers in India that we work with. We have folks all around the world. And there's cultural differences that we learn about. And so it happens. But I would say the nice thing about our culture is I see very often, if there is any kind of issue like that, people just get together and talk it out. And most people are understanding that, again, things are coming from a good intention, and we learn and we grow.
Yeah. I second everything Ken just said. And if anybody tells you that they didn't come across setbacks or issues, they're lying. It's everywhere. It's in every department. It's in every company. And I think that's where like soft skills really come into play, where you're able to, like Ken said, approach each situation with the mindset of trying to understand. I think just to help with that, right? How did you tackle them? Something that I learned from one of my mentors, is one of the most valuable lessons I've learned, and I'm constantly applying it, is he said, approach every situation with a disproportionate amount of curiosity, right? Don't assume, don't project what you feel is going on onto the person. You just have to make sure you're asking the right questions, that you're open to listening, that you're open to compromising and having discussions around what could be best, and update your perspective. Always be available to just updating what you believe, what that mindset is as you receive information. So I feel like that's one of the things that have really worked out for me whenever I'm trying to tackle issues or come across problems. And Ken did mention something about like the culture, right? I think what's great about Stryker and the way we hire is that very seldom will you come across someone who's so unreasonable that you can't come to a solution. We've developed a culture where the folks that we work with, they're to an extent, they're kind of like on the same page as you, at the same pace, at the same level. So it's when you do come across someone who's unreasonable, I'm not sure that they tend to last very long, but there's something to be said about the culture and the way we approach our issues.
That's excellent. Folks, there's one question that I'm going to forward out to you afterwards. It's from Sang Young Nam, who asks if Stryker has plans to expand portfolio. Just to be respectful of everyone's time, I'm going to send that question as a follow-up. What I'd like to do is, first off, thank our audience, who were great today. You guys were highly interactive. I was just mentioning to our panelists how challenging it can be for people to feel comfortable enough to submit questions. You've really been spectacular. And I do want to let you know, just an answer to one of my trivia questions, that we have 131 alumni who are confirmed to work at Stryker, of which 52 of those work in New Jersey, in the greater New York, New Jersey area. So we have well over 100 alumni who are ready and waiting to network with you. Also, I want to give a thanks very much to our panelists here today. Normally, I would ask for some applause from our audience, but I'm gonna work on behalf of our audience to thank all of you for doing this. This has been a real pleasure to facilitate, to moderate, and also to participate in. All of you are distinguished alumni for us. I can't thank you enough for taking the time. What I would like to encourage is for all of our audience to connect with the alumni who are here on screen. And Sherry, I'm going to give you the last word on this. Are you willing, are you interested in helping students to learn more and to participate and work at Stryker potentially in the future?
Absolutely, and that's why I try to be as involved as possible in campus recruitment, and I do come on campus quite a bit to talk. I think I have a CHE talk next week. So, and I'm not the only alumni by any means. We all care about the students and the learning process. So, absolutely, feel free to reach out or attend any events that we're supporting.
That's great. All right, to all of our panelists, thank you so much for participating. And what I do want to point out to everyone is that we are going to record this presentation. It will be available afterwards. I want to thank, again, all of our audience for participating today. We will reach out by email afterwards to share this with you. And I do encourage you, as a reminder, to join HighlanderNation.org and on LinkedIn to find the panelists who are participating today. If you are interested in connecting a little bit further, please feel free to reach out to the alumni office. You can call us directly at 973-596-3441, or you can email us at alumni@njit.edu, and I'll be happy to facilitate those introductions myself. Again, thanks very much for taking the time, and go Highlanders.